Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome back, Tokers and Tokettes. Radical Russ live in Portland, Oregon. Just finished up with a radical rant, and it's got me wading into the abortion issue. It's such a simple issue for me. Now, of course it is, because I'm male, and I'm childless, and I'm single. So, who cares what I think? That said, it's a very simple issue to me. The rights of the existing human outweigh the rights of the proto-human. Splitting hairs over when does life begin, when's life conceived, whatever, blah, 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 is meaningless to me because of one clear fact. An existing human being exists and has rights. A proto-human being does not. And I challenge anybody who calls themselves pro-life, which is really just anti-abortion, which is really just anti-women, which is really just we want to control women. But I challenge anyone who calls themselves pro-life to take this little thought experiment with me. In one hand, in my right hand, I am holding a living, screaming infant by the leg over a pit of razor-sharp spikes and sharks with lasers on their head and flames and lava. Whatever it has to be, right? But I'm holding this infant in my right hand. He's dangling, right? In my left hand, I have a stack of 5 Petri dishes. Each has a fertilized human embryo in it at various stages of reproduction, but fertilized embryos right there. Living fertilized embryos that could be implanted into a woman's womb and could be carried to term. 5 living embryos, which according to the pro-life movement are life and have rights. Okay, so I got baby in the right hand, 5 embryos in the left hand, holding them over the pit of spikes. You can only stop me from dropping one of these hands. Which one are you going to pick? Well, if you're pro-life, you got to pick the baby. You got to pick the hand with the 5 embryos. And I have to drop the baby into the pit. Because to you, it's the choice of whether 5 babies die or 1 baby dies. Right? Those embryos are the same as babies, right? We can't kill the babies. Would you really have me drop the 5 embryos and save the living, breathing infant? Because if you would, then you ain't really pro-life. You don't really believe that embryos are the same as human beings. Somebody played this thought experiment with me before and said it was just 1 embryo in one hand and a baby in the other hand. And if you're truly pro-life, you'd have to flip a coin. Because those babies are equal and you'd have to just, randomly decide which one dies. That's why I like to up it to the 5 embryos. Because then it forces your hand. There's no coin flip involved. You're really going to let me kill 5 babies rather than 1. So in talk radio, I was told when I first got into this 10 years ago, you're not supposed to go into the abortion issue because everybody's got their mind made up and it just inflames passions and people get pissed. And well, you know what? I don't care. I have some strong opinions. And as my one of my favorite people in history, Tallulah Bankhead, once said, I'd rather be strongly wrong than weakly right. Of course, in my case, I'm usually just strongly right. It's a whole lot easier. The phone lines are open at 971-533-7111. If you want to talk about it, you disagree, please disagree with me. Call in and disagree. I'll be polite. I'll be nice. Unless you start calling me names. We've also got some marijuana news coming up. Interesting stuff on...
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
Tommy Chong is ready to cut through the smoke and change the tone of Tilk Radio.
All you have to do is decriminalize. We don't need a government regulation to tell us this is good pot, that's bad pot. We don't need any of that.
The Tommy Chong Podcast, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome to my world.
Coming soon to a city near you, Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. Get all your cannabis accounting, legal, and compliance questions answered by their knowledgeable panel of industry experts who want to help your canna business boom. Whether you're a grower, dispensary operator, or a newcomer to the field, your canna business needs Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. For information on upcoming events, visit CannabisFinanceBootCamp.com.
Pod 2.0. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 8 after the hour, and we're kind of discussing this this extortion that we're hearing now. Those of us in the Bernie Sanders camp, from these Hillary Clinton supporters who desperately want this nomination process to be over. They expected Hillary Clinton to be coronated, just like 2008. They just expected her to walk in. It's her turn. We need a first female president. It's her turn. Without actually considering whether or not the person whose turn it was a lousy candidate. This is what Republicans do, right? They nominate guys like Bob Dole. Bob Dole doesn't like being nominated. They nominated a guy like Bob Dole in 96 to run against Bill Clinton because it was his turn, because he had seniority and it was his turn to run for president. Then they nominate a guy like John McCain for the same kind of reasons, right? Whether they analyze whether this person's a decent candidate or not. And by all measures, Hillary Clinton is a lousy political candidate. Even the Clinton insiders say she's got all of Bill's baggage and none of Bill's talents, right? Hillary Clinton, first of all, if she's nominated, and again, don't give this away to her yet, but if she's nominated, she would be the second most hated candidate ever nominated by a major party. Second only to Donald Trump. So we could have the two most hated people ever to run for president, running for president. And her trustworthiness numbers just through the floor. Just ridiculous. Now, in the Democratic primary in Michigan, they asked, exit polls, right? And they asked them, do you find this candidate trustworthy, right? And in a Democratic primary, Hillary Clinton was barely able to beat 50%. while Bernie was like 85 or something like that. Crazy, right? So she's disliked, she's distrusted, and she's got a mountain of prior scandal behind her. Now, Clinton supporters, they'll come out and they'll say, well, she's been tried and tested. She's had all those scandals thrown at her, and she's survived them all. Well, look, it's a little different surviving 11 hours of the 9th Benghazi hearing that's on C-SPAN 9, and nobody in the country really gives a shit about it or is paying attention, and even if they did, could really understand what's going on there. She's never really been, attacked at the celebrity A-list running for president level. And just the sheer volume of attacks that would be possible makes it almost impossible for her to fight against. She constantly be playing rearguard kind of defensive action as Trump just nails off Travelgate, Blue Dress, Whitewater, Vince Foster. I mean, he can go all the way back to the 70s in Arkansas, or the 80s in Arkansas, and dredge up every single thing. And by the time she's explained the finer points of why Whitewater was no big deal, he's already on to sniper fire over Bosnia and being named after Sir Edmund Hillary. Right? I mean, there's just an unending thing. And people aren't, at this A-list kind of political celebrity presidential run level. Everything's in 6-second sound bites. Everything's in bumper sticker headlines. She'll just be buried and buried by a guy who, take this as you will, and consider Donald Trump however you want to. You cannot deny he is a master of media. Cannot deny that he knows how to get a camera and knows how to make a soundbite and knows how to make the news. And he will just bury Hillary throughout the general election season. Now, there are polls out there that saying that Hillary can beat Trump, but of course, Bernie beats him better. But those polls haven't yet been tested, and not tested by the attacks that Trump will be able to muster against her. Plus, all this outrage about Trump, saying the anti-Islamic things and the anti-Muslim and the black people getting kicked out of his rallies, all this kind of stuff, that's going to be going away. He's going to get more like this. He's letting the circus freaks fly, letting the freak flag fly when it comes to the GOP primaries, because he knows that the most conservative is the one that, the most outrageous is the one that's going to win that. Once he locks down this nomination, you'll be stunned by Donald Trump's pivot to the center. He'll be to the left of Hillary on some issues. He'll adopt some of Bernie Sanders' talking points. And he won't have to suffer any of political consequences of flip-flopper like a John Kerry might have, or any other candidate might have, because he's not a candidate based on ideological purity or party rigidity. He's a celebrity. That's the thing the political class can't understand about this, is the power of celebrity and the power of the media to shape people's perceptions. I mean, the media and the perceptions were good enough to be able to convince us that Arnold Schwarzenegger could run California, for God's sake. I mean, it's amazing what you can do with a few campaign ads and some $1 million in your pocket. So we've been talking about this, and the reason I keep bringing it up is because we have a candidate in Bernie Sanders, one of the two major party candidates who has staked out the most revolutionary position on our issue of marijuana reform of any politician ever in my lifetime. We've always been fond of Dr. Rand Paul, the Pauls, saying they stand up for marijuana legalization and so forth. But neither of them have gone so far as to say it ought to be descheduled. They're more of states' rights kind of guys. And we've had Democrats that have come out in favor of medical marijuana and such, but none of them have been so far out in front of the issue as Bernie Sanders has. And it's telling to me how some in the reform movement, especially looking MPP's way on this one, some in the reform movement have been very, very, very quick to trumpet the candidacies of people like Gary Johnson or Ron Paul or Rand Paul as the saviors of marijuana. Not so trumpeting lately on Bernie Sanders. wonder why that is. Could it be that a lot of these reformers, a lot of these reform organizations that are dealing with the billionaire boys clubs and all the big business interests that they need to, fleece for donors? Is it possible they don't want to anger those donors by supporting the guy who would institute economic policies that would hurt some of those donors and some of their loopholes and some of their grants and special privileges? Because the way I see it, when you've got one of the two major party candidates, one of them who's in this race, right? We're not talking a Rand Paul who never polled above 2-3% in the Republican primaries. But when we're talking about Bernie Sanders, who just won frickin' Michigan and openly on stage talking about his marijuana use and how he wants to deschedule marijuana, how is it that we don't have overwhelming, loud support from the marijuana reform orgs, from marijuana activists for Bernie Sanders, like we did for Rand Paul, Ron Paul, Gary Johnson? Here's the guy that's got the best polling numbers and the best chance of anybody I just named. I mean, I love Gary Johnson. I think he's a great candidate and a principled man. Been on stage with him at numerous events. But Gary Johnson's not going to be president of the United States. There's no realistic hope that that's going to happen. Rand Paul, Ron Paul, never going to be president. Never polled within, even breaking double digits. Bernie Sanders in these matchups, in these hypothetical matchups with Trump, Cruz, Rubio, Kasich, which those last two will become increasingly irrelevant, destroys them, mops the floor with these guys, wins. Hillary barely beats Trump, and loses to these other guys. Why are we not hearing more from the major drug orgs, the major marijuana magazines? The magazines are doing better. Dope magazine just had Bernie Sanders on its cover. Freedom Leaf magazine had Bernie Sanders on its cover. I can see Hillary Clinton in those mags. So the magazines get it. The people whose money depends on the readers, depends on the cannabis community, they get it. The websites like Marijuana Politics, which full disclosure I write for, they get it. They see the excitement amongst cannabis consumers to hear a candidate actually talking about descheduling marijuana. And on top of that, giving us the healthcare and education that our tax dollars ought to be providing. And yet I don't see enough from the, let's call them the grass tops as compared to the grassroots. I don't see enough from the grass tops trumpeting the candidacy of Bernie Sanders like I think they should. But, it's interesting how as marijuana becomes legal and it's the $1 billion market and all those big numbers with commas in them, it's interesting that as that happens, we're starting to see this split. We're starting to see a divergence from purity to the ideal of marijuana legalization. I had to basically embarrass Normal publicly to get them to endorse Ohio's initiative last year. And to this day, reformers are still gleeful that Ohio lost. Yay! Prohibition won in Ohio. Yay! Cops can still ticket and arrest people. Yay! We won. We beat back a terrible, lousy legalization that would have created medical marijuana and legal marijuana for the first time ever in a state. Yay! It lost. Yay! Nick Lachey won't make any money. Yay! I still hold the grudge, folks. I don't forget. And now, of course, Ohio's moving forward with an MPP-sponsored medical marijuana initiative, which is a good medical marijuana initiative. It's better than most of the East Coast ones that have come across. It's got home grow. It allows whole plant. It have a reasonable set of dispensaries. Sure ain't legalization, though. Remember all those Ohio people that were telling me, you wait, 2016, OTEP, Ohioans to end prohibition. Oh, we'll be voting for real legalization in 2016. Now it looks like what they might be voting for is MPP's medical marijuana law. That's a good medical marijuana law for 2006, right?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to shoot you. Right over.
And now for something completely different. A man with 3 buttocks. Love that Monty Python stuff. Hey, folks, it's 4:20. Means we are definitely late for our safety briefing. I hope you've got your safety materials with you because I got to get this briefing started. Be back in just 2 minutes. Stick around.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be. The Vuber way.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
I do not like them, Sam. I do not like green eggs and ham.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
Tokers, there's no good reason to get your dog stoned. While it might not harm them physically, imagine being a dog who already begs for treats all day, and then imagine that dog having the munchies. Not cool.
The fingerboard extension has fretted instruments to enhance your creativity. It has new and used guitars and banjos from beginning to high class. The fingerboard extension has National Resophonic, Husson Dalton, Larrabee, Heritage and Recording King guitars, and Mike Ramsey, Wildwood, Gold Tone and Recording King banjos. The fingerboard extension also has drum stuff, used gear, and parts. Stop by the fingerboard extension, downtown Corvallis, Oregon at 120 Northwest 2nd, or check out the inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com and reverb.com.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is Dan Michaels from danmichaelsaudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour. Another thing I want to touch on in this political discussion, and this show is going to get increasingly political, folks. Gotta tell you, I've been talking about weed for 10 years. And as we win more and more battles, there's less and less need for me to have to keep covering the basics. You know what I mean? Marijuana is a medicine, right? We're past that, aren't we? Well, most of us on this show are. And I'm not going to abandon this by any means, but I'm just saying, as we move on, and 2016 is this pivotal presidential election year, and marijuana becomes more and more of a political issue, I'm going to become more and more of a political host. We're going to talk politics here. So one aspect of marijuana and politics that always vexes me is this hardcore anarchist libertarian bent that we've got amongst a lot of pot people. I don't know how many, but a lot. And I got one on my Twitter feed who's also shows up in our chat room quite a bit. And it's interesting because of how we just fundamentally view things differently. And the quote that's kind of set me off is this quote. He says, how about ending the Federal Reserve and get the government out of your life? Right. And this has to do with me. I had posted something about, I don't want the government in my life, in people's lives, forcing them to give birth when I was talking about the abortion thing. And that's what it really is to me, right? Is whether or not the government can force you to have a baby. And I just don't think anybody should be forced to have a baby or forced not to have a baby. Like, I would be just as against government enforced abortions like, China's one-child policy, right? I think at the fundamental biological level, government has no business interfering. And that's the trait that we take for the marijuana movement too, right? Our body, our choice. If we want to smoke pot, it's our body, it's our lungs, it's our mind. We have the right to do that. And that's why sometimes I don't even like to get bogged down in the harmful, harmless arguments. Marijuana causes 6 points of IQ loss. No, it doesn't, right? We can have that argument, but it's really a moot point. If alcohol and tobacco are legal, we have established that people have the right to fuck themselves up, to really fuck up their health. You got the right. Smoke cigarettes until you get lung cancer and die. It's your right. Drink booze until you get cirrhosis and die. It's your right. Don't mess with anybody else. You drink and drive. You smoke inside. And you do things that mess with other people. We got a problem with that. But if you want to destroy your body for fun, for what you perceive to be fun, have at it. It's your right. So once that's established, we don't even have to argue about whether or not marijuana is harmful or not. Marijuana will cause 6 points of IQ loss. Okay. And so that's the reason I should be imprisoned if I try to smoke pot, is because it might make me dumber by 6 IQ points. It doesn't matter, because you can show a study that alcohol will make you a whole lot dumber. Any harm they want to imagine for marijuana already exists for alcohol or tobacco. We allow those. Therefore, it is wrong. It is unconstitutional. It is simply unallowable for our government to be intruding on our lives in that respect. And that's where I find a lot of overlap in the Venn diagrams of the abortion rights arguments and the marijuana rights arguments. And it really just comes down to my body, my choice. So what happens though sometimes is when people find out that I'm that guy, like I'm all about, liberty in that respect, they want to extend it to other things that are on the business side. And I've said before, this is where I fall off with libertarians. Like, for me, libertarianism works perfectly in the first person. When it's me, my body, what I'm doing with my body, I'm as radically libertarian as anybody. When encounters start to become in the second person, dealing with others, right? You and me dealing with each other. So long as you and I are in equal footing and power, I'm still pretty libertarian. You want to rent your body to me for money? Prostitution? Okay. So long as you and I are on equal footing as human beings. Now, not if you're, coerced, sex trafficked slave. No, of course not. In an ideal world, though, we would have regulated prostitution, like they have in Germany, where they aren't coerced. They're safe. They have a regular old career with 401k and healthcare and, it's just tests and prevention and so forth. Right. So that's where I lose libertarianism, is when it starts to get into these encounters between unequal parties. And libertarians want to pretend that those parties aren't unequal and they're all making informed and rational decisions in interacting and contracting with each other, right? It goes back to that argument of, there shouldn't be a minimum wage because why? If you don't like the conditions at this job, you can go to another job and through your choice and everyone freely contracting. Bullshit. That's going to happen. That's what we had back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And it ended up with people getting paid with scrip from the company store. So no, that's not the way it works. When there's a power imbalance, that absolute liberty accrues to those with the power. That's always the way it will work. And unless people can band together and increase their power through unionization, through other means, unless they increase their power, there cannot be an equal and fair bargaining in that libertarian realm, right? So that's where I lose libertarians. When you start putting dollar signs around it, we need to start having a third party involved in this to make sure things stay fair. And that's where I start to support government. And I replied to this guy that I don't want government out of my life. There's a lot of places where I really like government in my life. When I was like 6, I really loved that government was in my life providing me an education. I love when I get in my car that government is providing me roads to drive on. I love when somebody's house near mine catches fire that government puts it out. I love when there's a bad guy roaming the streets that government sends armed agents to catch him and put him away. I love it when government, when it does so, keeps my air and water clean, right? There's this thing. This is one of the things I dislike about being in the marijuana movement sometimes, is so many people have had such bad experiences with government, whether it be the criminal justice system busting them for growing plants, or them being, business people, marijuana business people who faced regulatory hurdles and problems, that then take that broad brush and paint it over the whole idea of having government at all. And no, sorry, I just will not take the little anarchist pill. I just cannot go there. So get the Federal Reserve out of our lives. Well, maybe there's Fed policies we need to look at. I don't like how it's struck, blah, blah, blah. But no, there will be government and banking. Those two institutions will continue to exist. We cannot go back to living through bartering chickens with one another. It's not going to happen. So long as there can be great accumulations of wealth and power, we will need a government of the people to fight those accumulations of wealth and power over the people. And again, this leads me back to why I'm such a Bernie bro, because he's the only candidate that sees this. Sticking up for Hillary Clinton at this point is like saying, the system's rigged, so you better have the best person playing in the rigged system for you. It's what Sarah Silverman was saying the other day on Bill Maher about, baseball era when everyone was on steroids. Well, you just liked your player because, everyone's on steroids. And then what do you know? Birdie comes along and he's not on steroids. And it changes your whole perspective. Hillary Clinton is the perfect candidate for the system we have. And that's the problem. The system we have is broken and needs to be fixed. Fortunately, many more people are starting to get this. And these attacks against Bernie are starting to wither away. The electability attack is withered as more and more people recognize that Hillary's a lousy candidate. She's got lousy likability numbers, lousy trustworthiness numbers. She does poorly in matchups against the Republicans, although it's shown now that she can probably beat Trump. But that's before Trump starts the attack machine on her, folks. And Hillary's support has maxed out. Like it's fossilized. There's no movement in her numbers. She's been around for so long that everybody that likes her and isn't going to change. And everybody that dislikes her and isn't going to change. Bernie, he's already well liked and well trusted. And that's with huge unknown numbers on him. People that don't know enough about him, they've never heard of him. So his numbers can go up and up and up. Same thing goes for the donations. Hillary's maxed out her donations, her individual contributors who can contribute up to $2,700. A lot of them already have. They can't contribute anymore. So she needs to go peddling for more big bucks from super PACs and big business, which undermines the perception that she's not bought by big business, right? So it kind of works against her. Bernie's supporters are contributing on average $27 and are nowhere near contributing their max. I'm actually contributing $25 a month. I've got it on a regular withdrawal to Bernie's campaign, so I'm not going to max out. It's exciting as hell to see this campaign going, and I just hope that one of the results of it is a little bit more of a awakening by people on our side as to what issues are really important. I think sometimes there's, most people perceive of the marijuana movement as being democratic, liberal, progressive, all those adjectives, and that there's very few Republicans in it. And I think that's beginning to change. I think there's a lot of Republicans coming to this movement, especially now that legalization and medical are so popular. And as more of these people recognize that the drug war is completely antithetical to what they consider conservative principles, we should be welcoming and recruiting more and more of these people. But I think one of the things that the Bernie Sanders campaign is doing is also bringing a lot of those Republicans over as well. I know a lot of people are like, what? Come on now. He's a Democratic socialist. Republicans are supporting him? Yeah. I got a few Republican friends who are telling me that, it's the It's the anti-Trump sentiment, who tell me they could never vote for Trump, and at least Bernie is talking about some of the issues that they care about. We'll see. I'm excited about this political season, and we're going to be talking more and more about it throughout this year. You're welcome to call in and talk about it as well. The phone line is 971-533-7111. And don't forget, coming up at the top of the hour, 5 o'clock, we've got the Stoner Jesus Show coming to you live here on Cannabis Radio. And following that, episode 2 of the new Tommy Chong podcast. It's all coming up right here on CannabisRadio.com.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
Tommy Chong is ready to cut through the smoke and change the tone of Tilk Radio.
Hope everybody's got their vape pen handy, or their pipe, or their bong, or whatever you use to do your medicine.
But you don't. It's not a requirement. You don't have to be high for this show.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
I don't know who you're talking to. You have to be high to do anything. At least I do. I don't know about you. In fact, I've been high so long that being straight is another high.
The Tommy Chong Podcast, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome to my world.
Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Canada Business 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com. With years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argusville. What are you smoking there, boy?
This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Just looking at a lively chat room going on here at CannabisRadio.com. If you're missing out on the chat, just go to the player, the main radio player, and click that button that looks like a little cartoon balloon. It might even be waggling at you. And you can get in there and talk with Michael and Jackie, and Stoner Jesus is even in the chat room right now, getting ready for his show. Lots to talk about, but I want to get back to some marijuana stories here in the news. Westward in Denver has a story up about pot dispensaries and the Adopt a Highway program. Apparently, a lot of these places have got these Adopt a Highways. And we've done this before with normal chapters. And it really, you just get your name on a highway sign. And, you know, twice a year, you got to send some people out to clean up the highway. And it's, you know, it's getting citizens to do the job the government should be doing, you know, cleaning up the roads, by exchanging some free advertising. Basically what it was. Now, interestingly, in this Adopt a Highway program, they list, in this Westward story, they list the places, the highways that have been adopted. And dominating the list with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 entries is Live Well, Enlightened Health. And I just think that's notable because LiveWell is the company that's gotten dinged a couple times in Colorado, I believe, in Denver, for the pesticides on its pot and had to recall all sorts of plants and product. So they're adopting highways. They're going to keep highways clean, but not the weed so much. And I wonder too, because LiveWell is the company that Snoop Dogg has chosen to make his Leafs by Snoop, his designer line of cannabis. And it's just remarkable to me that, you'd pick LiveWell when they're the ones whose name now is kind of synonymous with, these pot recalls. Also, LiveWell, I believe, was the one that had an exhibit at the Denver County Fair where they were giving out medicated chocolates that they said weren't medicated because they weren't allowed to bring in medicated chocolates. First of all, what kind of demo is that? Here, taste what our product tastes like without its most important ingredient. Like, as if the pot's not going to change the taste of the chocolate some, right? Like, well, yay, this is a great chocolate bar. I could go get a Hershey's for, $1, but thanks, right? But then it turned out that some of their chocolates apparently had the full complement of THC in them, and some people who didn't know they were about to get high got really high. And, sometimes people on our side laugh about this, but I've been dosed when I wasn't expecting it. And it's not like getting high. It really freaks you out. If you don't know that it's coming, that feeling of edibles can be a very, very scary feeling. And it's not cool. Not cool to dose anybody like that. It's just wrong. So there we go. There's LiveWell adopting highways all across Colorado. We've also got an update in the U.S. News and World Report on the April 2nd smoke-in at the White House. This was inspired by Bill Maher lighting up a joint on his show and talking about not getting complacent and calling on President Obama in his lame duck time as president here to do the right thing and issue an executive order descheduling cannabis. He can issue these executive orders. The Controlled Substances Act has it set up for the Attorney General or the President to initiate these changes without the approval of Congress. Every AG and, Holder when he was the AG and Obama have both said, well, it's really up to Congress. We got to wait for No, you don't have to wait for Congress. The Controlled Substances Act gives you all the power you need to make all the changes you need to our cannabis laws. So Adam Eidinger and the guys out there in D.C. with the D.C. Cannabis Campaign are planning a smoke session on April 2nd out there near the White House. You can get arrested for this. It's federal property. Chris Goldstein is just coming off 2 years of probation. Chris has not smoked pot in 2 years because of his probation and his drug tests. And that's coming to an end very soon. I think it'll come to an end before April 2nd. Maybe. I don't think he'll be out there. But they're going to light up on April 2nd. Now, they moved it from 420. They were going to do it on 420, but 420 is in the middle of the week. And people have other 420 things they want to do sometimes. But April 2nd is a Saturday. And it's 4/2, right? So you're close. My only problem with it is that April 2nd, the first Saturday in April, is the Ann Arbor Hash Bash in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's the longest running public smoke-in protest in America. It was created for the activist that got busted, 10 for 2. What's the guy's name? Dang it. Just slipped my mind. John something. Anyway, who got a 10-year sentence for 2 joints. And they've been doing this Ann Arbor Hash Bash now since then, since the 70s. John Lennon wrote that song about it. They've been doing the bash. And I really wanted to make it to the Ann Arbor Hash Bash this year as my first, my opening of my spring tour. And now they're going to do this DC thing. Dang it. And the other thing too is this DC thing. There's a lot of things going on in April on the East Coast that might be interesting for me to cover. There's a CanMed conference going on April 10th and 11th in Boston. There's the Patients Out of Time conference going on April 14th through 18th in Baltimore. And there's the United Nations General Assembly special session on drugs going on in New York, April 19th through 21st. And then there's that's in Arcata, California. But I'm just saying, a lot of stuff going on the East Coast. So I'm going to miss it. I'll probably be in Ann Arbor. I've got to go to this Ann Arbor Hash Bash. I've never been to it, and I really, really want to go. Gosh, what was that guy's name? It's going to bug me. John Sinclair. Thank you, John Thomas. I knew it was a John something. John Sinclair. Exactly. But according to this story in U.S. News and World Report, Eidinger says he believes civil disobedience is now necessary, particularly given the impending election of a new, potentially less marijuana-friendly president in November. And I don't know. Like I said, I don't think, let's just take for granted that Donald Trump will be the presidential nominee for the Republicans. On a pure marijuana issue, I'm not afraid of Donald Trump at all. Cruz, Rubio, Christie. Now that's the only thing is if this latest bromance between Chris Christie and Donald Trump, if this was a deal to get Christie's endorsement in exchange for being attorney general, now I'm scared. If Christie is the attorney general in a legal marijuana world, I'm terrified. Barring that, though, Donald Trump himself, I don't see him as being an anti-legalization guy. I don't see him being that way. I think, again, he's a businessman. And remember that any president that's coming in 2016 also has to cope with the statewide results of marijuana elections in like 9 or 10 states. And if these elections go as well as I predict they will, which is wins in all of them, legal marijuana in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Massachusetts, and Maine, if they can get this appeal heard on their signatures, legal medical marijuana in Florida, Ohio, Missouri, and Arkansas. Hell, maybe even legal marijuana in Michigan. They've got signatures going on up there too. If all those states win, or even most of them win, the next president coming in has this huge mandate from the American people in very diverse areas of the country to allow this marijuana gravy train, this gold rush, to continue. So you can't scare me with a President Trump on my most important issue of marijuana legalization. Unless, again, Chris Christie's the attorney general. Then all bets are off, man. I could see Chris Christie actually sending in body armor DEA agents into the warehouses in Denver. I can actually imagine him doing that. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that's the deal either with Chris Christie. I think a Chris Christie, gets put in charge of Homeland Security. He's like that guy. That's what Trump would do with a guy like that. Yeah. Jackie Newberry makes the point that Obama's not a lame duck until after the next president's elected. You're right. So from November through January is when he'd be the lame duck. Even better time to be pardoning some pot criminals and signing some executive orders to deschedule marijuana when nobody can do anything about it. And it would be interesting if the next president is elected and it's Bernie Sanders versus if the next president coming in is Donald Trump. Does the Trump presidency then force Obama as a lame duck to kind of make these executive orders while he can, and force the President Trump to have to rescind them? I don't know. It's just all speculation at this point. Michael in the chat room says Trump is way pro medical marijuana, and Christie would throw 8-year-olds taking CBD in jail. But then Trump can be enticed with the smell of money. Yeah. Roland Reverend says that Christie will close all the bridges. All the bridges in America. That's going to suck here in Portland, let me tell you. We got a lot of bridges here in Portland. Oh, I'm glad you folks can indulge me talking politics a little bit. It's a lot of fun for me. Had a lot of fun watching the election returns last night and listening to all those pundits on CNN try to talk their way out of what a Hillary blowout they had predicted just hours before. Some of the best stuff on TV, folks, when CNN pundits are spectacularly wrong. It's very entertaining. We're going to take a break, and we come back, we'll close up the show and get things ready for Stoner Jesus, who's coming up live at the top of the hour. I'm already feeling the stony Holy Spirit. Or maybe that's just the Jack Herer in the vapor pen that tastes like grapes.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be, the Vuber way.
This is the Russ Belville Show, annoying Kevin Sabet since 2012.
It's time for Cannabis Facts about teen drug use from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. This message is supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. A recent survey by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control indicates that in states that have legalized medical marijuana, the rate of marijuana consumption among high school students has not increased. In fact, in legal states like Colorado, teen use has actually decreased significantly. It's simply no longer a big deal for teenagers in legal states. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPA's offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the New Era.
And Blüblaschen Gergen, Pfaffen der Blaschen, Schnurb Norben. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
That is the kind of high-quality nonsense babbling that you can only get from a native of the upper Midwest. Thank you, Dan Michaels. Glad to be here. Radical Russ live in beautiful legal Potland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios. Closing up shop here, sipping on a Jack Herer grape-flavored vapor pen. And I'm not much of a pot snob. I know there's a lot of people out there like, ooh, propylene glycol, ooh, additional artificial flavors, ooh. Cool, more for me. Because I like it. I like these developments in our technology. I like not having to find a lighter, not having to deal with ashes, not having to touch my fingers to sticky, damn dabs, not having to have a torch. I like having an exact 1 gram that I can see through a clear container and know exactly where I'm at. I like how small and portable they are and easy to keep around. The only thing I don't like about the vapor pens is having to recharge the battery. But hell, I do that with my camera batteries and my recorder batteries, and I have pretty good habits about plugging stuff in to make sure they're charged up, so it doesn't affect me so much. And I especially like the less, not having smoke hurting my throat, not having that smell of burnt marijuana that's so easy to detect. I'm a huge fan of these emerging technologies. And these kind of technologies only possible through the legalization of marijuana. I didn't see a whole lot of, maybe it's because they just invented it, but didn't see a whole lot of vaporization technology in black market Idaho. That's for sure. Also got this great bit of nerdism here in my inbox that I just love. A picture of Dirk Benedict and Katie Sackhoff in a Starbucks. Dirk Benedict and Katie Sackhoff in a Starbucks. And if that's not funny to you, you're not enough of a nerd. Us nerds are cracking up over that. We think that's hilarious. Dirk Benedict and Katie Sackhoff in a Starbucks. Also, news coming up. Another event we'll be covering April 24th. Eugene, Oregon, the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. Headlining guests, Tommy Chong and the real superstar, Dr. Carl Hart, will be in Eugene at the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. I am angling to get an interview with Dr. Carl Hart, who is someone I admire more than just about anybody in the drug reform movement. That's April 24th. Check out OregonMBC.com, like Oregon Marijuana Business Conference, OregonMBC.com. We'll be there. We'll bring you highlights, and it'll be a great show. Speaking of great shows, thanks for joining us here for another 2-hour episode of the Russ Belville Show. Coming up next, live here on CannabisRadio.com, it's the Stoner Jesus Show. Prepare to get your stony self saved and send the kids into another room. You might not like, let's just say Stoner Jesus is not safe for work. Well, I guess it depends on your work. It's safe for my work. And then following Stoner Jesus, episode 2 of the Tommy Chong podcast, new here on CannabisRadio.com. For everyone here at Rolla J Studios, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.